the woman suddenly found that something had got into her skirt. She sang the exorcism nursery rhyme out loud. At the moment her heart felt like it was about to jump out of her chest. The light in the fitting room suddenly turned on, but just when the woman thought she was finally safe. Since a few days ago, the woman began to experience the supernatural events she had met with in her childhood again. These things had clearly not happened for a long time. In fact, all of this was part of the devil's plan. On a rainy night in 1964, Senna found the Ed couple and told them about the bizarre experiences that had happened in her home. Senna's father was an antique dealer. Since he bought an ancient mirror on one occasion, he always felt that something was following him. Every night, her father would lock the door tightly, but by the next morning, the door would always open without warning. He also frequently heard someone calling him inside the house. At first, the family all thought it was auditory hallucinations caused by the old man's advanced age, but Senna never expected that a few days later, her father would die on the roof beam. But after her father's death, the situation didn't improve. Senna also felt that strange and eerie feeling, and the source of that creepy voice seemed to point to the ancient mirror that her father had brought back. At that time, Ed's wife Lorraine was pregnant, but in order to drive away the possible hidden devil, she still resolutely walked into the storage room, where the mirror was kept. The shelves were full of strange dolls, dozens of clocks and watches were hanging on the walls. Lorraine suppressed her fear, and lifted the white cloth covering the mirror. The mirror frame was carved with 3 eerie wooden angels. She spoke slowly, saying she had come to help. Suddenly, an uneasy creaking sound came from the wooden staircase nearby. Lorraine plucked up her courage, and reached out to touch the mirror surface. The next second, the mirror surface suddenly shattered. Her reflection in the mirror had become strange and terrifying. A horrifying scene suddenly flooded into her mind. It was unclear whether it was due to excessive fear, or the interference of some mysterious force. Lorraine suddenly felt contractions. She hurried to call her husband out loud. Ed immediately took his wife to the hospital. In the car, Lorraine kept saying there was something in the mirror, but Ed had no time to deal with the devil right now. After taking his wife to the hospital, the doctors immediately began the operation. At this point, lightning flashed continuously in the sky. Even more bizarrely, the hospital, which had complete power facilities, suddenly lost power. Lorraine clearly felt something watching her from the darkness. She looked not far away, and a hand stretched out from the darkness. At the moment lightning streaked across the sky, Lorraine saw a hideous-looking devil lying on the roof beam. Just as she was at a loss, Ed rushed into the operating room. The devil disappeared without a trace immediately. Lorraine told her husband to protect their unborn child. No matter what, she had no strength left to speak. Under the doctor's guidance, she finally gave birth to the child. But half a day passed. The EDS didn't hear the baby's cry. Lorraine held back her grief and prayed to God repeatedly to let the child live. Perhaps it was a miracle from the deity. The baby in the swaddle actually let out a cry. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Lorraine happily named her daughter Judy. After that, the family of 3 spent a period of peaceful and happy time. Until Judy was 8 years old, the little girl ran to Lorraine in tears, saying she had seen something terrifying. No matter how she tried to drive it away, the thing just refused to leave. Lorraine comforted her daughter while saying that whenever Judy saw those things, she should sing the nursery rhyme she had taught her. Even after calming down, Judy still had a worried look on her face. She wanted those things to disappear. Lorraine said nothing. She just hugged her daughter and kept encouraging her. In 1986, because Ed was in poor health, he and Lorraine had to withdraw from the exorcism circle. Instead, they turned to giving some relatively relaxed lectures on exorcism, to warn young people that devils exist in reality. But the young people seemed indifferent to this. That night, the EDS and their daughter had a meal at a restaurant. A sudden chill welled up in Lorraine's heart. Coincidentally, Judy had the same feeling. She immediately began to recite the nursery rhyme her mother had taught her. After a moment, that strange feeling disappeared. But the next second, Lorraine was horrified to find a black devil's hand sliding off her daughter's shoulder. Both mother and daughter let out exclamations. But when faced with Ed's questioning, they both claimed that nothing had happened. At the same time, in Pennsylvania, the Jack family was holding a birthday party for their daughter Heather. Heather had attended a sacred mass during the day. In the evening, the whole family had a dinner together. They had specially spent a lot of money to prepare a special birthday gift for Heather, an ancient mirror. Although there were cracks on the mirror's surface, Heather's grandfather said he could fix it. The whole family was very happy, but what they didn't know was that this mirror was exactly the evil ancient mirror that had caused many tragedies. When it was time to blow out the candles, the candle flames went out by themselves in a strange way. Everyone thought someone was playing a prank and didn't take it seriously. But when everyone was about to cut the cake, the chandelier suddenly fell without warning. The scene immediately descended into chaos. Luckily, Heather only suffered a slight injury. After everyone cleaned up the scene, the party continued. The next day, Jack had someone fix the chandelier. No one connected this incident to the ancient mirror, but when Heather's mother Jenny was tidying up clothes, the toys on the ground suddenly made a noise. She thought the toys were just broken, so she went to the basement to do the laundry. She plucked up the courage to turn on the light, but found nothing unusual. Jenny sighed and went upstairs to chat with her best friend about the strange things that had happened these days, but the telephone line was suddenly pulled. She subconsciously thought it was her twin daughters playing a prank, but when she turned around, her two daughters were clearly playing in the living room, not far away. They weren't near the phone at all. The next second, the receiver was suddenly pulled away, and finally dragged into the storage room. Jenny hurried to turn on the light to check, but the storage room was empty. She froze in place instantly. At the same time, Jenny's twin daughters ran to the bedroom on the second floor to play. Suddenly, the younger daughter heard the sound of a toy. She followed the sound to the room where the toy was. Unexpectedly, as soon as she got into the door, the toy rolled over by itself, then it slowly floated up into the air. In the evening, the whole family gathered together and told Jack about the strange things that had happened that day, but no matter what, Jack didn't have the ability to move. They could only continue with their lives. After Heather went back to her room, she discussed the recent strange events with her sister Debbie. She suspected that everything was related to that ancient mirror. In fact, she had disliked this mirror from the very beginning. After discussing it, the two decided to quietly throw the mirror away, while the family was sound asleep. Early the next morning, the cleaner came to collect the garbage on time. That ancient mirror was also thrown into the garbage truck. As the garbage truck door slowly closed, the ancient mirror shattered under the pressure. Meanwhile, Debbie, who was having breakfast inside the house, suddenly felt unwell. She kept coughing, and the next second, she started vomiting violently. Debbie's family was all shocked by this sudden scene. It was only after Debbie finally stopped vomiting that she took several pieces of glass from her mouth. The family immediately took Debbie to the hospital for emergency treatment. Luckily, Debbie wasn't seriously injured, but after going back from the hospital, she firmly believed that the house must be haunted. She demanded that the whole family move to a motel temporarily, but the Jack family had 8 members, and only Jack earned money. He simply couldn't afford the high accommodation fees. Moreover, Jack had already contacted the local church. The priest didn't find any substantial evidence of haunting in the house, but even so, Debbie still refused to stay in the house any longer. Late at night, Jack, who had been busy all day, finally got to lie down and rest, but he heard a strange sound coming from the side of the bed. He reached out to pick up the glasses on the bedside table to see clearly, but the next second, he found a female ghost with a pale face staring at him. Immediately after that, Jack suddenly felt unwell. He couldn't move. His body even floated into the air uncontrollably. Jack struggled desperately, but it had no effect at all. He saw through the mirror that the female ghost had already climbed onto his body. At the same time, Heather's suspicion of haunting grew deeper and deeper. She recalled that the candles had suddenly gone out at the birthday dinner, so she started watching the video of that night, and even specially adjusted the playback speed to the slowest. At first, she didn't find anything unusual, but after watching it many times, Heather finally noticed a blurry ghost figure in the corner of the camera. It was this ghost figure that had blown out the candles. At the same time, Heather was in a daze. Car lights came from outside the window. She turned her head subconsciously, only to find a sharp axe on the table. The next second, an evil spirit suddenly rushed out of the shadow. He picked up the axe and swung it, and walked towards Heather with a grim smile. Heather was so scared that she screamed repeatedly. Jenny was woken up by her daughter's screams. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw her husband floating in the air. When the evil spirit saw Jenny wake up, it quickly let go of Jack. Jenny didn't have time to check on her husband's condition, and immediately rushed downstairs to find her daughter. Jack also regained consciousness and walked over quickly. Luckily, Heather was only frightened and not injured. She clung tightly to her mother's hand, and kept muttering that someone was coming. Jenny quickly turned on the light, but everything in the room was normal. There was no trace of any evil spirit.
We can't live like this, Jack. We need to do something.
It didn't take long. The news that the Jack family was harassed by ghosts spread throughout Pennsylvania. Reporters swarmed to their home to cover the story, making it a sensational topic. Many people expressed sympathy for the Jack family's experience. but there were also dissenting voices. Some people thought the family was just mentally disturbed, others suspected it was an attention-seeking hoax. In response, Jenny seriously replied that none of her family of 8 was crazy, and the haunting wasn't made up either. On the other side, today was Ed's birthday, so Lorraine held a grand party. Relatives and friends gathered together happily. Judy also brought her boyfriend Henry along. Ed was very happy to see his daughter, but his attitude towards Henry was a bit cold. At the party, Judy warmly introduced Henry to Father Simon. Father Simon had watched Judy grow up, so the two had a good relationship, but the good times didn't last long. When Judy went back to her room to reminisce about the past, she suddenly heard a creaking sound from the rocking chair behind her. The next second, the sky suddenly darkened. Looking in the mirror, a very strange doll appeared on the rocking chair. Judy quickly began to recite the nursery rhyme. Then she mustered up her courage and turned around. Suddenly, the sky suddenly brightened, and the doll on the rocking chair disappeared. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief, and Henry's arrival gave her even greater courage. Henry promised that no matter what happened, he would get through the difficulties with Judy. Just then, Lorraine walked over and asked Henry and Judy to go to the garage to play table tennis together. The whole family was happy and harmonious. While Judy was away, Henry solemnly took out an engagement ring, saying that he would propose to Judy soon, and hoped to get Ed and Lorraine's blessing. Lorraine also seriously told Henry that their family wasn't an ordinary one. If Henry was prepared, they would certainly bless them. Just then, Judy suddenly turned back to the garage. Plans couldn't keep up with changes. Now Henry couldn't hide the ring even if he wanted to. He proposed on the spot. Judy was deeply moved and agreed. A few days later, Lorraine accompanied her daughter to a bridal shop to try on wedding dresses. When Judy was alone, adjusting the hem of the dress in front of the mirror, she always felt that her reflection in the mirror was a bit strange, but couldn't tell what was wrong. Just then, the door of the fitting room was suddenly pushed open. She thought it was the shop assistant coming back, until the person bent down and crawled under the hem of the wedding dress. Did she realize something was wrong? Judy's voice trembled as she sang the nursery rhyme, but this time, it had no effect at all. The devil approached step by step, and finally even climbed onto her body. The devil didn't disappear until the lights came on. She had just breathed a sigh of relief when her reflection in the mirror suddenly grabbed her by the neck. Luckily, Lorraine heard the commotion and rushed in time. The devil was scared away. Judy finally escaped unharmed. At the same time, Father Simon arrived at the Jack's house. It turned out that the strange phenomena in the Jack's house had become more and more serious. Even Heather's grandmother was so frightened that she was admitted to the hospital. After hearing the whole story, Simon decided to purify the house with holy water. When he walked into the basement and sprinkled the holy water on the ground, puffs of white smoke suddenly rose from the ground. Father Simon's face darkened. He clearly realized that the devil's power was very strong, far beyond his control. Only the archbishop of the church might be able to confront it. Simon immediately set off for the church to request an audience with the archbishop, but the archbishop had just gone out. The secretary asked Simon to sit and wait for a while. Just then, Simon had a nosebleed without warning, and the wires outside the house started moving on their own. In the moment Simon was distracted, the secretary suddenly disappeared, but the phone on the desk rang. He plucked up the courage to answer it. Unexpectedly, it was Judy's voice on the other end. Simon immediately realized something was wrong. It was the devil imitating Judy's voice. The next second, the office door suddenly closed tightly. The sky darkened instantly. Simon knew this was the devil's doing. He quickly picked up the cross and chanted the exorcism spell loudly. But the devil was too powerful. It even set the cross on fire. The pain made Simon let go of the cross. In just a few breaths, Simon's mind was corrupted by the devil. He walked quickly out of the office, picked up the wires, and chose to commit suicide. On the other side, the relationship between Henry and his father-in-law gradually became harmonious. To help Henry integrate into the family as soon as possible, Ed took him into the basement. The basement was filled with cursed objects. Each object contained a devil. Henry asked in confusion why they didn't destroy these things. Ed said helplessly that it would be great if it were really that simple. Just then, Lorraine and Judy ran over in a hurry. It turned out they had heard the news of Father Simon's death. The next day, the EDS attended Father Simon's funeral. Lorraine personally presided over the farewell ceremony. After the funeral, Judy reached out and gently touched the coffin. A strong sense of unease welled up in her heart. She saw another priest chatting with her parents, so she walked over quickly and asked where Simon had the accident.
Pennsylvania. God only knows why he was out there.
The next day, while Lorraine was washing dishes in the kitchen, she found that the drain was clogged. No matter what method she used to unclog it, nothing worked. Lorraine had to use the most primitive method, reaching her hand into the drain, but the tip of her finger touched a hard object. When she fished it out, she saw it was the pendant. that her daughter Judy wore all year round, Lorraine's heart tightened, and the pendant fell into the sink. Luckily, Ed arrived in time. Only then did Lorraine realize that what she had just seen was an illusion. She also realized that Judy might be in danger. Just then, a hurried knock sounded at the door. The person at the door was Judy's fiancé, Henry. From him, they learned that Judy had gone to the Jack's house in Pennsylvania alone. Lorraine, Ed, and Henry set off immediately, and soon arrived at the Jack's house. Lorraine told her husband and son-in-law that she didn't want to get involved in any more exorcism incidents. They would take Judy away immediately once they found her. But Jack seemed very excited. When he saw Ed and Lorraine, he knew they were famous exorcists, and Lorraine felt that something was wrong with the house. As soon as she walked in, even the air was filled with a strange atmosphere. But when she saw Judy standing safely in the living room, all her doubts were thrown out of her mind. She and Ed only wanted to take their daughter and leave immediately, but Judy firmly said that she wouldn't leave. The Jack family was almost torn apart by the devil. Father Simon also lost his life because of the devil. Judy could also feel that something in this house was calling her. Listening to her daughter's plea, and looking at the tired expressions of the Jack family, Ed and Lorraine finally relented, and agreed to stay and help with the exorcism. Before taking action, Ed asked Jack to detail the whole story. Lorraine wanted to talk to her daughter again, but the next second, a strange sound came from upstairs. Lorraine told her daughter not to come up, and she hurried upstairs. Just then, that strange toy doll suddenly appeared, but this time, it wasn't the devil's doing. It was Jenny's young daughter who had wound up the toy. On the other side, Lorraine was carefully feeling the strangeness in the bedroom. Suddenly, she sensed something under the bed, so she squatted down to check immediately, and found that the bed springs were bent. She quickly stood up, and surprisingly saw the devil lying on the bed, but it disappeared the next second. A dark figure flashed past behind Lorraine. She immediately followed the dark figure to the utility room. The originally closed door slowly opened. Lorraine closed her eyes to sense the devil's trace. Later, she conducted a detailed investigation into the history of the house. She hurried to find her husband, and told him that this place was once a farm. Many years ago, a farmer found out that his wife was having an affair. In a fit of rage, he killed his wife and her mother with an axe. According to Lorraine's judgment, the farmer, his wife, and his mother-in-law were the three souls lingering in this house. The devil was using them to deal with the Jack family. Ed was very confused when he heard this. With the devil's strength, it would have killed the Jack family long ago if it wanted to. What on earth was its purpose? But Lorraine also didn't know the devil's true purpose. At the same time, Judy, who stayed on the first floor, suddenly heard a mother's call. She thought Lorraine had found something upstairs, so she ran up immediately, but the second floor was empty, with only a ladder leading to the attic at the end. Judy didn't think too much and climbed up the ladder immediately. The light here was dim, so she had to turn on her flashlight to look for her mother everywhere. Just then, Judy saw a mirror, and this mirror was exactly the ancient mirror that Heather had thrown away and been crushed by the garbage truck, but now it appeared intact in front of Judy. But Judy didn't know these details. She curiously stretched out her finger and gently touched the mirror surface. The next second, a white chalk rolled out from under the mirror frame. Judy looked in the direction the chalk had rolled. Judy hadn't yet recovered from the shock. When the light in the attic went completely dark, a terrifying creaking sound suddenly came from behind her. Just then, the clutter in the attic seemed to be knocked over by something. Frightened by the scene in front of her, Judy scrambled out of the attic. Just as she was about to leave the second floor, she suddenly heard Heather's young daughter calling. Judy couldn't bear to leave the girl behind, so she turned around and walked towards the girl's room. The door was wide open, and there was an unsettling atmosphere coming from inside. Judy mustered up her courage and got into the room. But the room was empty. Only an Annabelle doll was there, with its back to her. The skeleton of the doll made a creepy sound. Its body actually kept expanding. In no time, it became taller than Judy. Judy stepped back repeatedly, but the monster was very fast, and even flew to chase Judy. In the end, Judy rolled down the stairs. The EDS heard their daughter scream and hurried over. Judy's voice trembled as she said there was something in the attic. The EDS got ready and walked up to the attic. The moment they saw the ancient mirror, both of them were stunned. Ed even said seriously that the ancient mirror had found them. Lorraine said nothing. She held the cross pendant in her hand, and took the initiative to touch the ancient mirror, and suddenly understood everything. Later, the EDS explained everything to the Jack family. The Jack family's attack by the devil wasn't an accident. It was a conspiracy set up by the devil to take revenge on the EDS. It was the first devil the EDS had ever met with. At that time, the couple was too young, their exorcism skills weren't proficient enough, and they were still very scared. Most importantly, they had to protect their young daughter Judy, so the couple didn't dare to go back. To completely get rid of the devil, to put it bluntly, they ran away in Fear back then. At this point, Debbie asked curiously. She and Heather had clearly thrown away the ancient mirror, so why did it still appear in the attic? Lorraine explained that as long as things were related to the devil, there would be countless troubles, and this time, the ancient mirror devil had made a comeback. For them, it was both a responsibility and an atonement. They had no way out and had to seal it completely. Ed quickly came up with a plan. The sacred relic room at home was a place, specially used to suppress evil things. It was the best choice to seal the ancient mirror devil. He decided to take action that night. He and Henry would be in charge of driving, and they had to transport the ancient mirror back to the sacred relic room before dawn. Just then, thunder rumbled in the sky. Ed seriously told Henry and Jack that they must wear gloves when moving the mirror. No matter what happened, they shouldn't look at the mirror, let alone touch it directly, otherwise, they would be possessed by the devil. The exorcism operation officially began. The three carefully wrapped the mirror tightly with canvas, then fixed it layer by layer with straps. Henry immediately went downstairs to prepare the car. Ed and Jack started to move the mirror, but as soon as they lifted the mirror, they felt its weight increasing continuously. The straps that were originally tightly wrapped also began to fall off little by little. Ed told Jack to ignore it. This was the devil's clumsy trick. But as soon as they reached the stairs, a cold wind suddenly blew, blowing off the canvas that wrapped the mirror. Although Ed reminded Jack in time, Jack still looked at the mirror's surface subconsciously. Jack's mind was instantly confused. He could no longer hold the mirror steadily, and fell from the attic. Ed desperately held onto the ancient mirror, which prevented the mirror from breaking Jack's foot. Ed told Lorraine and others who came, after hearing the sound, to step back immediately. If they saw the mirror surface, it would be over. Almost at the same time, Henry downstairs finally started the car, but as soon as he turned the car around, the figure of the devil suddenly appeared in front of him. Henry was so scared that he sharply turned the steering wheel. The car crashed straight into the barbed wire by the roadside. Although Henry wasn't injured, the car was completely wrecked and could no longer be driven. But the devil's revenge had only just begun. After Lorraine went back to the room, she found her daughter huddled in the corner, humming that exorcism nursery rhyme. But when Judy finished singing the last line and looked up, there was no trace of blood in her eyes. It was obvious that she had been possessed by the devil. It told Lorraine that it had been waiting for 22 years for revenge. Just then, Henry rushed back to the Jack's house. Through the window, he saw Judy, possessed by the devil, walk into the living room with blood all over her face. The Jack's dog barked fiercely at her. The devil immediately used supernatural powers to grab the dog and throw it against the wall. Henry outside was very anxious, but he couldn't open the door no matter what. Just as the devil was about to attack the twin girls, Ed arrived at the living room in time. He quickly called his daughter's name, hoping to awaken Judy's consciousness, but Judy, possessed by the devil, completely ignored Ed's persuasion. She punched Ed hard in the chest, trying to kill him by triggering a heart attack. Ed hurried to take out emergency medicine from his pocket, but dropped it all over the floor due to trembling hands. At the same time, Lorraine, who had been knocked unconscious by the devil, slowly woke up. But the next second, an evil spirit holding an axe slowly walked down the stairs. He was exactly the farmer who had killed his wife back then. Lorraine was so scared that she didn't dare to breathe. When she turned around, she bumped into another evil spirit, the farmer's wife. It was the farmer who swung the axe at her. This scene was like a replay of the murder from that year. After killing his wife, the farmer turned his target to Lorraine. The basement was cramped, and Lorraine had nowhere to hide. It seemed she was about to be hacked to death by the farmer. Suddenly, the side door of the basement opened. It turned out Henry had found his way here. When they turned around again, the farmer had disappeared. On the other side, Ed finally managed to swallow a pill with trembling hands. When the pain in his chest gradually subsided, he stood up immediately and told Jenny to take her family out of the house first. Just then, Lorraine hurried over. She told her husband that the devil's target had always been Judy. Ed's expression darkened, and he told his wife to hurry and get the exorcism book. When the EDS and Henry arrived at the attic, they were shocked to see the devil controlling Judy, making her struggle in midair. The devil also kept throwing old tables and chairs at Lorraine. Because the wooden board under Judy's feet wasn't strong, Ed could only have Henry tie himself to him, while he struggled to cut the rope with a knife. But just as he finally cut the rope, the attic's wooden board broke. The three of them fell down together. Ed ignored his own injuries and immediately started performing CPR on his daughter. Lorraine was filled with despair, but when she looked up at the ancient mirror not far away, her reflection in the mirror was clearly possessed by the devil, showing a very strange smile. The next second, perhaps due to the devil's mischief, Ed's heart disease attacked again. He could no longer continue the CPR, so he asked Henry to take over. While he lay aside in pain, Luckily, Judy finally woke up thanks to Henry's unremitting efforts, and broke free from the devil's control, but this action completely enraged the devil. The ancient mirror suddenly rose slowly, and spun rapidly in the air. Ed endured the severe pain in his chest, and held the exorcism book high, and chanted the spell at the same time, trying to perform the exorcism again. As soon as he finished speaking, the spinning mirror suddenly stopped, but this wasn't because the devil was intimidated, but because it was preparing for a more violent attack. The next second, the devil controlled the mirror frame, and suddenly crashed into the stairs. It trapped Henry's foot and kept pushing backward. It also retracted the ladder leading to the attic, completely cutting off Ed and the others' escape route. But Ed didn't give up. He pushed the mirror hard with one hand, while continuing to chant the exorcism spell with the other. The devil was annoyed beyond endurance, so it set fire to the exorcism book in Ed's hand. Ed made a quick decision, and pressed the burning book against the mirror surface, burning the devil so badly that it was in agony. This action completely enraged the devil. It controlled the mirror frame to clamp down on Henry's neck. At this critical moment, Judy suddenly remembered that, when she had met with the devil before, as long as she sang the nursery rhyme her mother had taught her, she could calm down. In fact, the essence of this action was that, singing the nursery rhyme could distract Judy, making her stop thinking about the devil's appearance. As long as they firmly believed the devil didn't exist, the devil couldn't harm them. Thinking of this, Judy and her mother immediately helped Ed hold against the mirror. The mirror surface shattered instantly. The devil immediately sensed danger, and roared ferociously at the EDS from within the broken mirror, trying to corrupt their minds. But no matter how painful it was, the three of them didn't let go.
You're not there.
Finally, with the very firm belief of the Ed family, the devil was completely sealed back into the ancient mirror. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The next morning, the Ed family said goodbye to the Jack family. The Jack family could finally live a stable life. After going back home, Ed placed the ancient mirror in the sacred relic room. From then on, the ancient mirror devil was completely sealed. Ed glanced at his son-in-law, and remembered that, no matter how dangerous it was the day before, Henry never ran away. Instead, he stayed by Judy's side and never left. He was someone worthy of his daughter's lifelong trust. He pondered for a moment, then handed the key to the sacred relic room to Henry. This also meant that he and Lorraine had officially retired. The exorcism work in the future would be carried out by Judy and Henry together. A month later, Judy and Henry held a grand wedding. The exorcism story of Ed and Lorraine's life also came to a perfect end. The movie ends here, as the final chapter of the series, The Conjuring, Last Rites, is generally decent. It breaks out of the simple scare routine. It weaves the past shadows of the EDS in 1964, with the strange events of the Jack family in 1986, making the evil spirit in the mirror a symbol connecting the past and the present. The movie deliberately downplays jump scares, and instead uses daily anomalies like sounds, to create psychological pressure, transforming the most familiar objects into carriers of fear. Behind this advanced horror, is a profound inquiry into the theme of family. The EDS return to exorcism to protect their daughter. Judy grows from a protected child to a fighter. Family love becomes the ultimate force against evil spirits. The wedding scene at the end is a stroke of genius. The appearance of James Wan and the series' old characters not only says goodbye to the audience, but also proves that the end of horror is never emptiness, but the weight of life forged by love and responsibility. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.